the exciting stuff. Not. Right, okay. I'm going to talk about the really exciting area of data, and traditionally you think data, we're going to just have a load of slides which are going to be text-based, no illustrations, no diagrams or nothing, so I've tried to spruce it up. I've also tried to stop myself from nicking any other Jisc illustrations and showing you the architecture diagram, okay, so I nicked something off Tribal this time. So I hope Richard and of course afterwards don't mind. So anyway, so I'm going to talk about learning analytics, where we are currently with our unified data definition or student data, an academic progression data model, also talk about our data processing agreement. I see a few familiar faces around the room, and obviously some of you are engaged with us at the moment around the data processing piece. Just a bit of a refresher really, so you've seen this slide before in terms of our requirements for predictive learning analytics model creation, and also looking at predictive model validation using portable or existing models to pilot and deploy into business as usual a learning analytics solution. Okay, so we've also got a requirement in terms of the predictive model creation, best efforts, 36 months worth of historical students and academic progression data. If we're looking at utilising models that have been created at other institutions, looking at around about 12 months minimum data there. Again, for the same time period, we're looking at then activity data. So we've talked a lot about XAPI and the recipes and the descriptions and the formatting for activity information for learning analytics engagement, specifically and primarily focusing around VLE from Blackboard and Moodle data and any other systems as such, but certainly focusing on those two initially. Library management systems and integration, looking through library analytics with Lee and their group. An AMS being attendance monitoring solution, so we're starting to do some work there with a couple of universities around their solutions, both commercial and in-house built as well. One of the things we keep imploring is about the quality of the data, not just in terms of the concentration of the data. So looking at any issues that you may have, working closely with you to identify areas where we cannot obtain certain data, or certainly thinking about not just in terms of historical data, the way we can get the data in there in the first place, but also thinking about the live scenario of a pilot service. You know, do you have any changes on your re-engineering of business processes, because we need to get data into the learning analytics processes in a timely manner. So if you think about your student record system, making sure you've got assessment data coming in a timely manner, not waiting until the end of the module and the assessment data goes in at the end. So there are other things we will be providing support to around those pieces to increase and employ data quality. So one of the things, so we mentioned individual assignment there, and the other thing we do help with is the data transformation piece. Now, Tribal have done a lot of work on that, not just in terms of the re-engineering and the development of our unified data definition, but have also helped a lot, especially with Tribal SITS customers, in doing the ETL piece. But we're also happy to get involved with you on helping you to get the data out that way. So this is what I stolen off Tribal. I wanted something different to ours really, but really a student insight overview. And what we're focusing on here is what's going in to the learning analytics processor. So about the quality data, timely collection of data, moving forwards once we create the models, and then what we have at the end there. So the unified data definition, and for those of you who haven't heard me bleat about it several times now in different meetings and network events, is basically unified because we hope that it will serve the data requirements for learning analytics for both FE and HE. It's openly available. It's very much a transparent and collaborative approach on GitHub. A lot of hard work has gone in from us and our vendors into making that work, and that work is continuing. Version 1.2.4 at the moment. Version 1.3 whatever it will be is in development, but it won't be released for a while. We want some stability. We want to get the data in, get the university users working in there, not employ any more kind of delays in getting the data in. and kind of get that into place. So we won't be releasing 1.3.x for a while, so I don't want to start people get panicky about that. The other thing we're doing is more work on evaluation of the VLE plugins for both, and specifically really with Blackboard. So for any Blackboard VLE customers, we've contracted Blackboard to not just develop a live transactional plugin for activity data transferring automatically into our learning record store, but we've also engaged with them now on an historical plugin to take in that data for predictive model creation and validation purposes. We've also got software and a plugin for Moodle. A lot of work's gone into that, and also Michael and Lee have done some work, and yeah, we've got it compatible now in terms of processing logs for many of you who have hosted Moodle installs with ULCC. So we've had a few customers there with initial issues getting the data out and certainly into our learning record store. The other thing we're doing as well is now doing data validation. So if any of you are familiar with the HESA students or the staff returns in terms of processing through Minerva and their online portals, it's very much kind of validating the data in a similar way. So in terms of making sure that the fields have got the correct values according to the Unified Data Definition model. So we're doing a lot of validation there now, both in batch and also building incremental data validation and load, preparing for pilot deployments in October. So there we go, we've got large data submissions as well, so that's one thing we're gearing up for. And the other thing we're working on is obviously the student app. Lee, one of our other developers in Manchester, Petros and Michael, have been working really hard along with our vendor there, Therapy Box, in getting that together. We're anticipating our first evaluation of the student app with one of our Scottish HEIs now, hopefully by the 18th of July. Okie doke. Now to the really interesting bit. Does that strike fear when you say those three letters? Does it give me sleepless night? It's not that bad. We've done a lot of work around the data processing agreement. We recognise that there's a lot of nervousness, a lot of concerns out there around the project in terms of storage of data and processing of data. Who's the data controller, who's the processor, who are the vendors, where the data is stored, is it secure, what happens if we leave the EU on Thursday, that's even comer, EEA, safe harbour anyway, gone. So yeah, so we're looking at, and we've done a lot of work on the data processing agreement. The project, in terms of, hello, so basically we've got areas of learning analytics in terms of the technical side, whereby we can create predictive models based on non-identifiable data. What's the reason for that? Well, in terms of one, we didn't have an all-encompassing and solid data processing agreement from the start. So we wanted probably a more straightforward route initially, in some cases, to getting some of this evaluation and technical feasibility work done. And again, for us, it's very much dependent on the solution or the vendor of choice for learning analytics, and what we can do is non-identifiable and identifiable initially and in the long term, but are also determined by you and what technical capability you have on site in terms of anonymising the data. But that's one approach we've got. The pilot service business as usual will need to have identifiable data, otherwise how are you going to deploy the services, how are you going to link to the right people, how are you going to intervene with the right people, okay? So kind of a bit of common sense there. We worked hard therefore with Pinsent Masons, a very large UK law firm in London, make way for the DPA. We basically consulted them with several HEIs on a first, second and third drafts. Ainsley, I know we're in deep discussions with you obviously around various elements of that. Up at Strathclyde, and it's been a very, I think, we anticipated we'd have something on the board by March and April, and it has taken us a bit longer, but one thing we have made key is engagement with you and getting your feedback, otherwise it's just not going to work. The feedback is varying. Some HEIs, some of the, by region, interestingly, have got very minor forms of feedback or have got different hotspots compared to other universities. It very much is down to not just the institution, it may be down to the data processing representative for that institution as well, and their priorities and peculiarities in some ways. So, and the size of the HEI as well. So we're providing support and guidance as much as we can through our PMO and our team in London, through Mark Harrington, who's been brilliant, and Hitesh, another member of staff in London, helping us there. I think the key message is peace of mind for everybody. Okay, we recognise that this is it's not just for you, it's for us, it's for us as a community. We can take this, bring all your suggestions, bring all the lessons learned into a generic agreement and deploy that for everybody. And that's what we're doing at the moment. So anybody else who's interested in learning analytics, it's a key first step. I'm quite happy to share that with you. So in terms of data, getting involved, and these are some of the questions we all throw out. I've slightly modified this slide, this one, but seeing any problems with data capture historically is one thing, but what about near live student data capture? And I really have to take it back to the business process re-engineering piece. It's easy to think about systems, it's easy to think about the raw data, but I think we've got to look around the business processes. Yeah? And that's something we've got to think about now, ahead of time, because to make those changes, to influence the change and put the processes into motion. I think in terms of June, July, we're probably in a good place, looking at the next academic year, if any of those changes need to be made so we get the data in at the right time. Resource implications as well for learning analytics and around about data. That's one of the things we're quite happy to get involved with. In terms of the ETL, the extraction, transformation, the load of data. Some institutions we have are very small. They haven't got any SQL DBAs or any low-level technical staff, or certainly anybody with the expertise to do this. You may have some HISA gurus internally who will understand, because our data model is similarly structured to HISA. But at the end of the day, if you haven't, then it's all very, very new to them, so we can help there. Student assessment information I already mentioned really is key. The other thing we're looking at is Turnitin. Turnitin for some institutions holds and is the sole storage area for assessment, grades, marks and information. It's what we need to do, and I think it's firmly on the plate, but we need some more HEIs coming forward saying this is an issue, we can't get the information out. We would look to integrate this and the data into the architecture. The other thing is what about other good sources, indicators of student engagement? Okay, attendance monitoring systems, the card swipes going in through, feeling into a campus. It doesn't have to be attendance information, hardwired into a timetable so you know where each student is at any one time. It could be PC login and other footprints. So to get you just thinking about that digital footprint piece and what could be used for learning analytics. The other thing I wanted to put in, because I love a bit of publicity myself, especially your boss loves a lot of publicity. So basically, looking about this whole student-centered piece and the whole thing about data, students want to know what happens with their data and about transparency. A university I used to work in several years ago, even when I was there then, very transparent what they were doing with student data. It was all out on the web, it was publicly and openly accessible, what the data was, what the purpose was. Okay? And this is one of the things that, how happy are students to share data, especially in the world of, social media and so on, Facebook and Twitter. And some of the work, obviously, that's been done, and Neil is the guru in this field, but obviously in terms of the work that's been done with the NUS and so on, is key. The app, the student app is coming. One thing is from the architecture, I think one thing, I hope you don't mind me employing, is the student app can live separately from the learning analytics processor. It doesn't need the learning analytics processor there. So there's real potential for this. The Fitbit concept for learning, okay? Watch this space if we can take it to the Strava concept. Implore positive, competition, gamification. Let's make this really interesting now and try and engage. I thought 20 years ago I was a bit competitive anyway, but you know what I mean.
That's an understatement.
I like my cycling, so yeah. But why can't we do it here and get the balance right? So there's huge potential here. Great article in the Independent a week and a half ago. I think it's great. We need your feedback. It's about user-centered design. It's about engaging with the students to see what they want. We've got 3 universities evaluating it. We've got potentially two in Scotland. We've got a Welsh one as well. It's bilingual software. let's see where we can take it and employ it, irrespective of the learning analytics process of work. It would be good to get some exposure. And then another article, specifically in the Scottish Herald, naming Strathclyde and Abertay. That's all for me. If you've got any questions, if you want to grab me a coffee, lunchtime, that'd be great. And thanks for spending the time.
Okay, thank you very much. So feel free to grab a cup of coffee, make the most of full